welcome to the Green Spoon podcast. We're really happy to have Jennifer here from Taka Taka Solutions. And today we're going to be talking about waste because it's a problem that we all face every day, and we need to perhaps get some ideas and inspiration and think a little harder about how we're dealing with waste. But before we get into that, let's have an introduction. So Jennifer, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you. So my name is Jennifer, and as Juliet mentioned, I am the Chief Commercial Officer with Taka Taka Solutions. I actually have been working away from the US, is where I'm from originally, for about 10 years. So how I got into waste management was I actually started off as a sales consultant and sales strategy consultant, working in wash sector. So figuring out how to sell latrines in villages from B2B to B2C.
Okay.
And eventually I got into agriculture, similar thing, in rural areas in West Africa, East Africa, Southeast Asia, in Bangladesh, selling water, solar, agriculture products. And one of the challenges that I kept seeing throughout was even if you have access to finance for small shareholder farmers, is that they continuously default on loans. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest challenge was that if they're in agriculture as their main income resources, their rain is unpredictable, their crops, their soil health is an issue because of the heavy chemical they're putting in. And a lot of it just kept centering around climate change. So it was really difficult to have those conversations with farmers and continue to hear the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
So I just took a step back and say, okay, how can I influence and use my skill set in a larger scale? And how do I get corporates to become more sustainable and be responsible? Mm-hmm. And I went from basically water and sanitation and Taka Taka Solution. Also reached out while I was actually starting a waste management company in Tanzania.
Oh, wow.
So they reached out and they said, hey, by the way, would you like to, interview with us? And I looked at their profile and it just fits everything that I was looking for.
Amazing.
So I moved here for this.
Amazing. Yeah. So did you just stopped what you were doing in Tanzania and decided this is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was really difficult with regulations, and I think I was still new to the region. Mm-hmm. I said, you know what, I think I need to learn first, not impose my solutions.
Yeah.
Learn from something that's working, understand the context a little bit better, understand the people, then do something for myself.
Yeah. So at that stage, was Taka Taka still quite in the early stages of setup, or were they quite an established business when you joined?
They already have their waste recovery, like material recovery facilities. At the time when I joined, it was around 250 staff. We were processing around 30 to 40 tons of waste per day. And now today we're at about 750 to 800 staff, and we are processing 90 tons.
A day?
Yeah.
90 tons of waste?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. But my burning question is, at the beginning of this podcast, is really to ask, okay, we are in Kenya a shining example of great policy when it comes to banning plastic bags, right? So the plastic bag ban came in, and we did stop seeing plastic bag trees. We used to go on safari and see all those plastic bags caught up in the thorn trees around Narok and places like that. And so, that's definitely diminished. But when you drive around, we're still quite messy as a country, right? And I'm not saying that to be critical. I'm saying out of curiosity, why do you think, how do you see the attitude towards waste here in Kenya?
That's a good question. I do see a drastic change in Nairobi, because that's where the company's based. I think when I first moved here, it was just I think sustainability was just beginning to be a topic. And so quite a lot of number of people that I spoke to was, if the waste is out of sight, it's out of mind. Meaning that's not my problem. If once the waste leave my house, once the waste leave my property compound, as long as my site is clean, doesn't smell, is no longer my problem. Mm-hmm. So you kind of starting to see the early adopters, corporations or even individuals or associations that come on board in the beginning to support us, like yourself, biofoods. We have, Safaricom. We have really great corporations and also individuals saying, I want to recycle. How do I do it? So in the beginning, it was really difficult because most of the people say, well, you can say you recycle, but how do I know it's true?
Yes.
Right?
There's this kind of disbelief, like, where is it actually all going?
Exactly. So then they say, well, if it's people could be lying, right? It could just be Takasaka saying we are recycling. So there was that block of I want to recycle, which I think studies have shown actually globally that people want to recycle, but they don't have the infrastructure or the information to be able to come on board. So as 3.5 years now pass, you start seeing that the early adopter, the leaders, came on board, and now people are coming to now becoming our clients. And it's now becoming a domino effect that everyone is talking about, let's recycle. And so Nairobi is really fantastic. I think lots of corporations want to recycle, they want to work with us. They just don't know how to walk the journey.
Yes, interesting, isn't it? Because it's all new. All this sustainability stuff is new. There aren't any rules, and there's definitely no end game, right? Because we're all still trying to learn and do things better. So with the recycling side, a lot has also changed, right, with Taka Taka, because I think when we first spoke and we sort of like talking to Bio about their milk bottles and so on and so forth, there was still perhaps, correct me if I've got this wrong, but my impression was that you were making the plastic into pellets and then it was having to be sent overseas to be made into something different. But that seems to be changing in Kenya. Can you give us a bit of an update? Like, where are we at?
So it's been really exciting that Kenya have formed like Kenyan Plastic Pack. There's a lot of associations because there is a push for recycling. So Taka Taka right now we have 2 recycling plants. So one is for what we call the rigid plastic, your containers, and flexibles are your garbage bags or food like packaging. So we have both. And it's still being processed internally. And actually, all the materials is actually being used currently within the country. So it's being reused within the country because it's just more efficient.
Yeah. Because we don't want to think like I'm recycling and then it's going to come back with this huge carbon footprint. So that's amazing. I love that. But the other thing that I think we all forget is it's quite easy to just say plastic is the enemy. Like, I don't want any plastic in my life at all, right? Which is really, really hard to do. There's plastic all over the place. So what I always find interesting about plastic is that there are different grades, right? So I think understanding that can help us make better decisions about the kind of containers that we're going to buy food in, for instance. Would you be able to tell us a bit about if I was making a decision about what to purchase, what should I look for? What's the good plastic and what's the bad plastic?
Yeah. Actually, so funny. This morning I was in CBD having a conversation with an upcoming client. And so they have done such an amazing job of doing a baseline, and what the whole office building discovered was that they're producing about 150 kg of plastic from milk bottles.
Okay.
And they said, how can we stop this? It's like all or nothing. I said, well, the only way for you to stop this is stop buying milk, and which is not a possible solution if everyone wants to drink milk, right? It's a demand. So some of the things that we spoke about was, well, good thing is that if you look at a container, you want to see there's different ways to look, right? So I'm going to give you 2 examples. So one is that the lighter the color, the more recyclable it is. So meaning that potentially the offtake is easier as a recycler for us. And also sometimes as a consumer, actually black isn't so bad, right? So for example, Grounded, they use fully recycled material within their containers. And black sometimes is difficult for recyclers to find a market. So if you can read the label and say, hey, by the way, this is made out of recycled material, you're helping recyclers to say, okay, we have an offtake market. We're willing to work with waste picker to recover that waste from the environment. Another thing you can look at is, as a consumer, I love shiny and colorful things.
Yeah. The bling.
Yeah, the bling, especially, packaging when it comes like multicolors, it's bright. It catches my eye more than a packaging that's a little bit dull or
Yeah.
However, when it comes to recycling, the packaging that looks a bit more dull are sometimes better, right? Because the color when it comes out. So that's kind of the basic rules, just looking at the colors. If it's PET, it's recycled. If it's HEP, it's recycled. Yeah. PP right now, there's Mr. Green and Taka Taka. We're both recycling that.
Okay.
But what it has is the multi-layer. I know this is technical. The shiny metallic items, the bags or food items. Yeah. Those are the ones that are hard to recycle.
Okay. Yeah. So those are the bad guys, as it were. And what about cling film? Because it's one of my bugbears. Oh, I don't like cling film. So we don't actually use cling film at home at all. We use like beeswax wraps or cloth wraps or just Tupperware where you can, fix the lid shut. Is it that bad?
That's a hard question, right? Because I understand the utility of cling film.
Yeah.
Right. It's in a way for food packaging when you're selling fresh food, it's a necessity. But if you can reduce that at home, like what you're doing at home, you should, right? It's plastic at the end of the day. I wouldn't say it's evil. I see it as a necessity, just like the multi-layer packaging, because it's for disaster or for a small sachet. It's necessity. I think as a consumer, limit our use, and it does get recycled.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. Because the other way to look at it, of course, is exactly what you're saying, is that without cling film, there could be terrible food waste. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about food waste and like what happens at Taka Taka with any food waste that comes through your system. Do you do you compost it? Like what happens to it? And are you seeing a lot or not very much?
That's a good question. So each day, based on our volume, 60% of it is actually food waste.
60%?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm really shocked by that. I'm really shocked. Okay, let's talk more about that.
So only 15 to 20% are plastic. So I can see an idea. So 60% are food waste. So the food waste is sorted. So like bones are taken out or citrus items are taken out. We do partner with like black soldier flies, companies within Nairobi. So those are a great way to divert some of our food waste.
Yeah.
But black soldier flies are picky eaters. So they don't eat everything.
Okay.
So they're picky eaters.
Do they mind citrus?
I don't think they eat citrus.
Okay. Citrus is tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. So because we have such a large scale for composting, a little bit of citrus is okay. I mean, it's fine. The rest of the food waste, you will see we have these windrow and we compost it. So it takes about 3 to 6 months to compost. And it comes out with this beautiful soil that's organic, that's good for your soil health, that helps your balance the pH. It's incredible. It's top soil for a smell.
Amazing. So that's turning into something really good. But do you think we should be reducing our food waste at source? Or is the food waste that you see going through Taka Taka one of those necessities that we can't really avoid?
I think definitely it's important because perhaps Taka Taka, we are composting, but doesn't mean that other companies have that capacity to do it. So majority of it does end up in landfill. And if I'm correct, it's 1 kg of food waste produces, I think, about 2 kg of carbon or a little bit more, somewhere around there. Yeah. So that does have the impact to climate change. So if you can reduce your waste at home, and if you're going to a restaurant, take your food home, or
Yes.
Just do something about it. Or I think it's really important because 60% of it is food waste. And then oftentimes it's not just offcuts.
It's actual food.
It's just
that could be
a lot of
consumed.
food could be consumed.
Yeah. It's really interesting that. So other types so we've covered plastics and food waste. What else? Maybe not not that you're necessarily seeing it come through Taka Taka, but other types of waste that you know are an issue here that perhaps we can be thinking about a bit more at home.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that I don't know about for you. I like to hoard my electronics and wires.
Yes.
I have a box
Of unidentified wiry objects
from 10 years ago. So yeah, wires are a big thing. I think when I was younger, I would buy like cheap charging cords because I would lose them all the time. I said, why invest in something that would last long? So what you realize is that you have 10 of them in the box,
Yes.
or 20 of them. So one of the things is that the big question we keep getting asked is, what do I do with my electronic waste? And I think there's kind of few ways, isn't it? It's like investing in higher quality if you can. That's durable. If you know that you're someone like me that are just not very careful, buy a durable one that will last.
Yeah.
Don't try to shortcut on that one. And then there's actually an amazing company called We Center in Nairobi. They do recycle. So if you are our client at Taka Taka, we do take all of our electronic waste to them. Mm-hmm. But they do these amazing community drives. So they work with Kilimani Foundation, and you can bring your old laptops, and they actually take it apart. They also have like programs to teach people, like young kids, on how to program. So they do quite a lot of amazing CSR.
Yeah, because I think the electronics thing is not going away, right? I think we're all under pressure all the time to like upgrade to the next phone or like get a bigger TV when you can get to that, or, you know, and even, you know, kitchen items, like our kettle gets a terribly hard time at home. Like, it's just constantly moving from the sink back to the kettle and whatever. And, you know, and then I find that it's starting to not work properly, and you're thinking, okay, let's try to fix it. So we try and fix things at home, and then at some point it's going to kind of come to the end of its workable life with us, because we're not the experts in electronics. So it's really nice to know that there's a center like that, and that it's not just fixing things, or it's actually doing more good by teaching people what to do and how to program these technological items, or whatever we want to call them. So that's cool. And then the other thing that I always feel a bit sort of I worry about quite a bit is the whole sort of like clothing, fast fashion. Not that I think we have too much here. We have Matumba, and you recently wrote an article about this on LinkedIn, which was really interesting. So tell us a little bit about this textile waste and what's happening here.
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely suffer from retail therapy.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I kind of dug myself into writing that article that you mentioned. So I think as a individual, I can talk about like individuals, what happens to the factory waste and what happens to, you know, textile that's imported. So I think what's really cool is I think we need to speak from data, right? So we service I think we have now over 2,000 clients. When we say one client, could be one building of apartments with 200 people inside. So I think last year we did an estimation, or 2 years ago, we did an estimation, was over 10,000 people that we were serving for households. So when you look at that waste that's being produced every single day, less than 1% of the waste that we are collecting are textile waste.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Yay.
So it's less than 1%. So by the time we receive it, because I think of for myself is that when my clothes go old, I call my friends, say, hey, does anyone want anything? Yes. And I give it to someone else.
Yeah. Sometimes at home we turn them into rags to clean windows or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so textile's not so much
big.
of a problem.
Yes, and by the time we receive it, it's kind of similar to what you said. Is it turned into a rag? It was on the floor. It has holes over it. It's really the end of life, which is fantastic because you're reusing it for a longer period of time. Then there's factory, which there aren't that many textile factories in Kenya, and there are some recyclers that already are collecting some of the textile and then they're reprocessing it and exporting. So that's pretty cool.
Interesting. And I can imagine that some of it might go to like Jurkali sofa makers or
Yes.
cushion makers and things like that. So it's then being turned into a new product.
Exactly. So it prolongs the shelf life. And then there's also African Textile. They also do the recycling drive with us. And that's if you want to donate your old clothes, you can take it to them also.
Oh, that's really good. We should put this all in the show notes. All the links, the We Center, etc., etc. So essentially what we're talking about here is like there's all these different types of waste. What we're doing at home should be, if we're thinking about recycling, we're really helping with that whole process. If you're able to compost at home, that's amazing. If you're able to get things right to the end of life, I think that also really helps. Is there, should we be separating waste at home, or is it okay to just sign up to a recycling company for waste collection and let them, what happens at your end? Is it important to do the separation?
That's a good question. So initially, when we started working with clients, we do want people to separate waste because when you separate waste, it helps with the recycling rate. It increases the recycling rate. Because if you think about it, if you have a paper or like a dry, like paper cartons or electronics, and you throw it all with the food waste, then it contaminates the material. And so then the recycling rate does reduce. So by separating waste, you're already contributing a lot, right? But one of the big questions I keep getting was, okay, I'm recycling, I am separating my waste, but a truck comes and throw it all in the same truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So why should I even bother? I think that's the question that we keep getting, that people want to separate, but they don't see the purpose. But if you tie your bags, right, when you take out your waste, some people don't tie their bag. If you tie your bag, it actually reduces a lot of effort when it gets to our material recovery facility. We do have currently, as I mentioned, 750 staff. Majority of their job is to sort the waste. So bottle
Quite a
capture
job.
Yeah.
Quite a job. I take my hat off to them. That's an incredible and not an easy job, I imagine.
Not an easy job, and they're so dedicated. And it's incredible their technical skill. I would say actually majority of our staff they know more about plastic than I do. They can move the plastic sound. They're like, this is BOPP, this is HDPE, and I can't hear the difference sometimes. But it does reduce so much effort for us when you do that. And rinsing out containers. That helps so much because of the cross contamination, the amount of water we will have to use in large scale.
And so when you cut it, I did it the other day actually, cut open a packet of chicken strips. And I feel bad for the person who's going to have to sort my waste. So I just give it a quick rinse. It looks actually as good as new, that bag. And then I put it into the sort of, my bin, my trash can that's for plastics. But it doesn't, and actually we only started doing it maybe a year ago, where we just give the aluminium tins a quick rinse out, give anything plastic a quick rinse out, and it doesn't take too much. But I hadn't thought about the water use at your end. I thought more about the people who then get a smelly bag of something and have to sort it out.
Yeah, that also, because it sits in a waste room for 3-4 days and it rottens and
So now you receive the waste, it gets sorted, and then what happens? It gets sorted into different areas of the warehouse, or how does it work?
It's quite amazing to see. So let's just say this table is right in front of us. You can't see it potentially. On the other side, it would be a line of people, and this side we would be having a line of people. And each person has one fraction, so you have a big, big, big bag, what we call the 1-ton sack, the big sack.
Okay.
And I have one fraction to sort out. So it comes on a conveyor belt, and then you just pick them out. So at the end of it is where the food waste is. So now all the bags are being taken to a separate area to be resorted. So let's just say you have a bottle for soda. Then what will happen is that the cap will be taken off, then the sleeves will be taken off because each of the items needs to be sorted and processed separately according to the type of plastic and the color of the plastic. Then now the food waste is obviously composted, then plastic is taken into whether it's rigid or flexible to be processed again.
Okay, and then do you have machinery that comes in to help with that processing?
Yeah, so we do have, so what's incredible is that we're setting up our 3rd recycling plant. So
Wow.
it's really exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's some flexible plastic. It's one of the biggest issue. So we have basically I won't go through the technical. So what happens is that it gets sorted again on a conveyor belt again. So all the items that were not sorted properly the first time are resorted. Then sometimes it gets crushed. So most of the time it gets crushed either the beginning or the end.
Okay.
Then it gets washed based on the type of plastic, and multiple times, sometimes 4 times. It gets squeezed and it comes out. Then now it becomes what we call flakes. So it's just big chunks of plastic. And imagine if you just chop up your plastic. Then now it has to be melted.
Okay.
So now it's melted and put into a string and it cuts into small beads. And that's what the raw plastic material looks like.
So if you were then making the grounded containers, they get the beads, melt them into the mold, and then they can be used.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm clear on that now. So what do you think now, like when you think about the bigger sort of picture of recycling and waste, are there any big barriers? Is it about us and our psychological barriers as individuals, or are there any other barriers that need to be broken down?
It's both, isn't it? I think we were in a conversation, right, with biofoods about them wanting to change their milk bottles to clear.
Yes.
Right? Because it's more recyclable. It's better for, promoting circularity. I think if I am correct, and I think you can correct me on it, is that the consumers don't want that.
Yeah, there's a bit of both, right? So when bio moved to clear, they went to sort of semi-clear to begin with, and then they went to clear. And there was a little bit of pushback. Yeah. Like, this is not what we know. We don't like it. And so I think perhaps we have to really open our minds to all the possibilities of packaging. At the moment, for instance, we have these bagasse containers which are made from sugarcane, which are really cool, but they do come with cling film. So, it's this thing like where we're just all trying so hard to make it work. We don't have a perfect solution yet, but we're trying to get there. So yeah, for sure, I think psychologically, as citizens, we have to get a little bit more engaged with the journey. Yes. And not be too passive about it. Not to be like, oh, well, I don't want to change. Why should I change? It's up to businesses to change. But we, as businesses, we change because we come under pressure from citizens, consumers, customers.
And I think that your packaging was a really good example. By switching, maybe you can share with me, I don't have the exact percentage. By switching your container to sugarcane, how much plastic did you reduce on that packaging?
I'm not sure, but it was a few of our suppliers took it up. Yeah. And then more have followed suit. Yeah. So there was quite a reduction. And being made from sugarcane, I think you can literally put it on your home compost, right? Yeah. And actually what's amazing is if you've just got a little bagasse with mange tout in it, we keep them then, and then we use them for like sandwiches, or if we've got leftovers, we can use them a few times before they end up going on the compost.
It was a workshop we were talking about like switch, and then people were very fixated on the cling film aspect of the package. I'm like, but like I think it's like 70% of that package is not plastic anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's celebrating the wins. It's a journey, like you said. It's not overnight you have a solution. There is no solution yet.
Yeah.
So it's that journey, and we should celebrate that. And look for solution for the rest of that clean film, aspect of the packaging. And maybe it's not possible. Maybe it is possible.
Yeah. But look at the 70%,
exactly,
which is awesome,
or more.
Where that we've got to. And I think, and projects like these Black Soldier Fly farms, we also support one here with our food waste. They're just like insane, like so cool that we're producing high protein animal feed from food that otherwise could have been ending up in a landfill, right, and emitting carbon. Instead, they're going into this high protein animal feed, and and then the chicken ends up being salty. It's really cool. But I think with the whole waste story, it's perhaps just like maybe we need to be open to changing our behavior around what we purchase, what we consume, and then it's not to say like your milk example is great too, because it's not to say like stop drinking milk or stop buying anything. It's just to be a bit more like tuned in to like, okay, now so what am I going to do next with what's left from what I've just consumed? And I think that makes quite a big difference in terms of psychological application, like just being engaged with the whole thing. Cool, Jennifer. So just like from your perspective, what do you think, like if you were to think like 5 years down the line, where do you think we'll be in terms of recycling in Kenya? It's a huge question.
It's a huge question, yeah. The government actually set up some regulations right now for the extended producer responsibility, which is great. And they have sent out a few letters, as you probably already know, that waste separation is necessarily. So I think that the country's moving toward the right direction, having the right conversation. Implementation is still something that everyone is trying to figure out, how do we do this on a mass scale, right?
Yeah.
But I'm really hopeful, because from the 3.5 years I've been with the company, I see that there's more conversations around it, and corporates are coming in, households are coming in, consumers are talking about this. And I think there's a really bright future with the government legislation, and with all the movement I see. So I'm hopeful. I am, and as someone that works at Taka Taka, and we want to support people to say, hey, ask us questions about what you don't know or what you do want to know, because it's a journey that we all going to walk together.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Really appreciated this. I've learned so much. As always, when I speak to you, I always learn so much. But we're really grateful that you came on the Green Spoon podcast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And let's all get recycling.
Yes. Thank you so much, Juliet, for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you've been inspired by this episode, please spread the love. Click on the share button and send it on WhatsApp to a friend you know would enjoy it too. Or do all the usual sharing and liking on social media. It makes a massive difference to us, and we're super grateful.